All right, and welcome to the next episode of FinOps Fridays. I'm here to talk about talent. There's, of course, been lots of hype around FinOps in the last few years, and hey, you're here watching a FinOps show. But what is happening is that organizations are finally understanding the value that FinOps can deliver to them. A FinOps practitioner can, practically walk into a company, point at a few things, save hundreds of thousands or potentially millions of dollars. So from a financial perspective, having a FinOps person is an absolute no-brainer. How do companies and organizations get them? We're seeing massive changes in the talent pool in FinOps. So we're here to talk all about talent with Ashley Hromatko. Ashley, give us a quick introduction to yourself. What is your current role? And a quick little summary of your career. How did you get to FinOps?
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan. I'm so excited to be here with you all. So my title right now is the Director of Operations for the FinOps Foundation. Prior to joining them, I was a longtime volunteer with the foundation. I was a practitioner that joined a lot of the summit calls, joined the working groups, and just learned a lot as I was trying to build my own team at Pearson. So previously, I was the Global FinOps Director at a large education company. Before we even got into that, I think just knowing that FinOps wasn't a thing on my radar 5 years ago or even 10 years ago when I was in college. So I started out by getting a degree in MIS. I actually wanted to be a history teacher and wanted to teach economics, which is kind of, this whole thing's come full circle for me. But I actually took my first coding class and really fell in love with the fact that you could solve problems through coding. So I took a job right out of college.
Sorry, what's MIS?
Oh,
You got the degree.
Management Information Systems.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. So I took a job right out of college, really doing data analytics, and I always kind of say that my love of optimization actually started with kind of doing process improvements. And so I really went more into the route of being a manager, and then I was a product owner for a while. I did some Scrum mastering, and while I was doing that, I got heavily involved with engineers, and I realized I really wanted to go full in on the technical side. So I switched over to technical project management and I joined Pearson about 8.5 years ago. I knew nothing about the cloud. So just think about that, 8.5 years ago, didn't know anything. And they were doing massive migrations. And so I think they closed probably over 50 data centers in 6 years. And my role in that was to work with our engineers to migrate that. And so that was doing a lot of Scrum Master, that was a lot of project planning, a lot of post-operational going live with those projects. And so I just really, really fell in love with that element of it. Oddly enough, on my first day that I started there, my manager was like, "You're going to do the AWS bill. It's just the spreadsheet and you just charge it back every month." And it was, 100K a month. It was nothing. And I thought, this is fairly easy. I end up putting it in a SQL database just to, again, automate, speed it up, optimize the process is what I was thinking. And by time I left there, we had 800 plus accounts. We were spending $1 million a week. And that little thing, the bill that I was doing, we ended up having to build a full-on data lake to process it. So it was kind of a combination of FinOps became an add-on to my job as a technical project manager, and then I really pivoted into a function and grew a team around it.
Yeah, nice. And it's interesting that, the core of that was the data, the analytics, just having that inquisitive nature, what I can do with data. It seems to be a good underlying. If you've got an inquisitive nature, then it looks like FinOps is going to be something that's for you type of thing.
Yeah, 100%. If you want to fix problems, it's a great field.
In terms of the technical project management, so that helped you to build a big stick and motivate teams, coordinate things like that as well. Was that a good role to be able to get into FinOps as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good background. If you think about any project manager, technical project managers, you don't actually manage people, but you have to motivate them to do work, right? And so that's very closely aligned with what you do as a FinOps practitioner as well.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Alrighty, so let's get into the questions. So let's get a bit of an overview of the FinOps role, and I dare say let's have a look at the industry evolution over the last 5 years or so. Pretty much from what you've just said, from humble beginnings of explaining what is a bill about to be able to slash bills by purchasing the magical commitment discounts, all the way to being the financial fund police. And also we're starting to see that FinOps is starting to get some seats at the big end of town, like the important people's table inside of the organizations. Ashley, how have you seen the FinOps role evolve over your time in FinOps?
Yeah, I think even just taking my personal case, I mean, it was an extension of my role at that time, right? Doing these reservation purchases, the bill, generating one-off forecasts, to where I left. I mean, I was having a regular seat with our CIO once a month to go over our cloud estate and what we were focused on. So, definitely a leveling up role that I moved into. I think what we used to see typically in the foundation is like tipping point where all of a sudden the spend became very sufficient and people would be like, we need to put some people on that. Or there would be individuals within an organization from the bottom up that's like, I'm interested in this, I want to tackle this. Now we've seen this shift, I feel like, where people are coming in and joining the foundation. They're like, we're just getting ready to migrate, or we're in the process of figuring out an RFP with a cloud provider and we want to get a FinOps team in place. And so that's been a really interesting shift for us to see folks wanting to build that skill set on the ground up versus kind of the aha gotcha moment and kind of panicking. They can be a little bit more planful with it, which is really nice. I
And
think
how,
yeah.
when did that start? Like in terms of people actually doing it, instead of doing it reactively, like preactively, like identifying we need this resource, we need this talent. When did you start seeing the emergence of that with some sort of regularity?
I think for me, it was probably about a year and a half ago where we started having people join and starting to share those stories. And I guess the flip is instead of saying, what is FinOps and like, what am I doing? Coming to the foundation and saying, oh, I've been able to use some of these resources and bring them back. So there's been this flip of coming to the community, not feeling alone to like now joining it and actually using a lot of the output and bringing it back to their companies, which is really flipped.
Yeah, wow. Like we look at the cloud, it's been over a decade of cloud. Yeah, FinOps has been a little bit less than that, I dare say. It's only recently that we're actually getting the industry and realizing they've got the talent. I mean, in terms of lag behind when talent was needed, that's quite a few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always been people that have been done optimization work and have had that part of their roles and things like that. I think just the formation around structure and framework and really establishing it as a function has seemed to be on the rise right now.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of the role itself, in terms of the duties that FinOps are doing, yours was a great story. You started off just a bill and a spreadsheet, and now we're talking seats at the table with the C-level executives. Is there a bit of a common theme in terms of how the FinOps role has evolved for a lot of organizations that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think evolved quickly. I think that's one way to put it. We've seen so many like enterprises, quickly spend and then realizing that they need to get involved. I think the other thing that we've seen is it's not just like one industry. Like it's not just retail doing FinOps. It's not just all the tech companies doing it. It's almost in every single industry right now. We're seeing a lot of our financial services leading it. That makes sense, right? The banks, the financial services are the ones doing these big moves to the cloud right now. So it makes sense that they're also picking up FinOps. We've also seen, a lot of growth in the landscaping of tools that exist. There maybe have been, a few vendors a few years ago, and it's doubling, and they're all trying to solve different problems in this space, which is really interesting to see. I also think just what's going on with the economy. We're seeing just this need to shift to like minimize our OPEX cost. And I think CIOs and CTOs are seeing this as a lever that they might not have leaned into 5 years ago.
Yeah, some interesting points, and the fact that not only has it like it's a relatively recent role. You look at things like security. You've had security people for decades, but we've had FinOps for less than a decade, and we're already getting seats at the table. And I think that's a very important message for the listeners that hey, this is a rapidly evolving role. Yet it is so clear that this is critical to organizations and the importance and the esteem to which this role is being held within organizations is very, very significant as well. It is a very powerful role. The value is there. So it's good to see. It's good to see, obviously.
It's interesting they bring up security too, because I think correlate to like a few years ago, we kept hearing about all these security breaches, right? And now a lot of organizations ramped up their security. Same thing, we're seeing this, we're overspending in the cloud. Now we're ramping up our FinOps teams. So very parallel journeys.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. And I think, and also to do your thing with the vendors as well. I get that question every now and then. Which tool is the best? And well, do you have one tool for security? Well, no, we've got like intrusion detection. We've got this. Well, I think that's probably going to be the end game with FinOps as well. Like there's no shortage of tasks and things to achieve in FinOps. There's going to be different tools. It's going to be a continually evolving landscape as well. Alrighty. If we look at other cloud roles, things like support, things like DevOps, in terms of importance in the organization, we sort of touched on this. In terms of importance, they haven't changed much. Why is it that you think FinOps has gone from being zero to hero so quickly in an organization? You mentioned things like the changing external landscape. Is there other important factors?
I think I kind of leaned into these a little bit. That the fact that like cloud spend has gotten so large, and there's been such a big shift from the capex, the opex spend has been probably the number one thing. We're starting to also see the importance of getting forecast right. We're narrowing down where we were kind of guesstimating on cloud spend and throwing a number out there and saying that's budget and then overblowing that budget and asking why, to now finance teams are especially CFOs are wanting to be heavily involved in what's going on in cloud. We're seeing a lot more of that when commitments are happening. It's not just a siloed IT decision, but it's a collaborative conversation with procurement and CFOs. So I think the tipping point is one thing that's definitely driving it. I think I give a little bit of a credit to the fact that there has been so much publication out there. I think about 4 years ago, I think I Googled the word FinOps and I found one article about it. If you do that today or you get on LinkedIn, you can find so many interesting things to read about it and different elements. And I think that's helped a lot as well. There's some accreditation to this thing that people are trying to do.
Exactly. And like it's good that there's so much cloud and it's just a critical component of cloud. If you do cloud, you've got a FinOps. So more cloud means more FinOps. Like doubling down, like the FinOps hype train. Again, shout out to the FinOps Foundation. The amount of exposure that is created in the industry has been absolutely phenomenal as well. And there's other pundits in the industry, people like Corey Quinn, that are great, that make it, instead of being some boring numbers, financial, technical game, they actually make it fun and entertaining. They make it accessible to the non-technical people as well. So I think players like that have had a key role in really making it, accessible to others and making it a fun place to be.
Yeah, it's a very open community in the aspect of like everyone loves to share their lessons and like teach. And that's been really enjoyable versus kind of keeping it closed off. And to some degree, FinOps is, an open source concept in itself.
Exactly. Now on to the next one. So FinOps is awesome. We've identified that everyone absolutely needs it. Next question is, well, okay, here I'm an organization, I've got lots of money. How do I go and get my FinOps capability? There's starting to get some very significant demand. It's a rapidly evolving field. How should organizations start to acquire the skills? And what happens if you just can't throw money at it? What happens if I can't find a FinOps person? Where should I be sort of throwing that money, or where should I be looking to develop those skills from within my organization? What are some sort of main strategies actually to be able to either sort of buy or build the FinOps talent as an organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I probably resonate on this a lot too. Is like, you can build it yourself. We're seeing a lot of teams do it. It is a lot of capital investment to do that, right? And that's going to require an executive pitch. And whenever you invest so much capital, you're going to expect that much return, whether that's in savings, whether that's in capabilities. So we're working with a lot of teams that are building business cases around building it. There's obviously the ability to bring in partners and bring in someone that can help consult, whether that's like a quick, get me off the ground, help me do the executive pitch, help me run my first 30, 60, 90 days. There's a lot out there for vendor assessment. You're going to need a tool. We did a survey, say a FinOps survey, and we found that on average, most FinOps teams are using about 3.7 tools and integrating them together. Some of those tools are third party, some of them are homegrown, but that's really important. So I guess my answer is you're probably going to need a little bit of a combination of all three. Even when I was building my practice, we worked with a vendor to help us do a little bit of consulting just to get our executive pitch down. Obviously, we built it by hiring, and then we leveraged third-party tooling to get usage visibility data out to our engineers. So I can't say there's one right answer. You're going to have to find what works for your organization, but be aware of where you might strategically use each one of those.
Yeah, and again, in terms of which tools, how many tools, etc., with anything FinOps, like what does your security practice look like? How big is it? The tenure of people, the number of tools. That's probably where you need to get to. How quickly you need to get there, well, that's going to be a you prioritization type of thing. In terms of building, um, we'll go into that in a little bit. Yeah, like what sort of people are the regular teams that you should be sort of tapping on the shoulder? What people make up the function of FinOps? From sort of start through the evolution of the FinOps practice.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, again, that goes back to it depends, but like when I was first starting, I did a lot of borrowing and begging, right? Like I really need to fix this forecasting problem. Can I borrow an engineer for a 6-week stunt to launch this, So there's some of that happens. I think when we talk about building the function, you have to understand that like the functions can be different in different models. So I came from a very centralized approach, centralized team. All the businesses used it as a shared service. We've also seen a very decentralized model where there are maybe FinOps teams that are within business units buying their own reservations. Maybe there's legal reasons why that's happening. I would nudge that decentralized maybe over time matures into having some of those functions centralized, but that might be my bias coming from a centralized team. One of the most popular that we've been seeing is the hub and spoke model, where you have a centralized team and then you have spoke teams that would sit within the businesses, and you are jointly working on building capabilities, working on business optimization cases together and things like that. So I think that's important to understand, like however that team is made up. But then even with the team, you tend to have a core team. So the core team are like the doers. They're doing the bill. They're buying the RIs. They're making the business cases. They're estimating new workloads, right? And those people tend to look like analysts. They might look like program management. You may bring in an architect on your team that's kind of coming into those calls with that mindset.
Yeah, sorry. Now, is that, you said like a core team? Is that an actual, hey, this is a FinOps team, that's their brass nameplate on their desks? Or is that just a collection of people from the organization that focus specifically or only do that function, but it can be elsewhere within the organization?
Good question. I'd say it's both. We definitely see the trend of more dedicated teams being formed, but then they tend to have an adjacent team. So they will then be working with someone from software asset management, working with their finance contacts. They might be working with the director of engineering because they want to build a KPI dashboard, but they need to make sure the director of engineering agrees on those KPIs because it's their staff that's executing it, right? So we do definitely see core teams and then adjacent teams. Some of it's formal, informal. They actually have the title, or maybe an addition to the role that they're already carrying.
Yeah, nice. And I've seen that as well. And also just in terms of cloud, where there was originally a small little cloud team. They got really awesome. Everyone loved the cloud. It's becoming a choke point. We'll break them up, distribute them throughout the business. We're seeing that same sort of trend within FinOps. There's some FinOps people. They add resources and then they spread to sort of build effectiveness.
Yeah, the big word we keep hearing too is like FinOps champion. So maybe you're not
Yeah.
directly on the dedicated team, but you've been identified as a champion. So when you have an SRE, pizza team that's formed, you've got a security champion, a FinOps champion,
Yeah.
something like that is what we're starting to see.
That's really interesting. So not only do you need FinOps in your organization, but in every single team, like FinOps is a critical skill to have in the business, in all aspects of the business. It's something that you do if you cloud. Like your people have to have some base level of capability in FinOps. Is that sort of what we're seeing?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that. I'm working with a large industry enterprise right now, and they've actually trained almost 52 people, FinOps certified them, and they range from financial analysts to engineers because they do see this need to have that like embedded into the mindset, and that's really how you're going to shift the culture when you have more awareness too.
Yeah, nice, nice. And you're here to give the magical short answers to everyone. What do you prioritize? So, what should you be prioritizing at the start of the journey? And is there a different answer for a big versus a small company in terms of prioritization?
But when you say prioritization of like the work that you should be doing,
In terms of, building that FinOps capability.
oh
Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to
okay.
start. What do I do first? Yeah.
Yeah. So within the FinOps framework, there's like 18 capabilities, and I think a big part is to figure out which of those capabilities you can reasonably do first. When I started out, it was the education enablement. Had that skill set. I had program management skill set on my team, and so we were able to build FinOps Friday lunch and learns. We were able to do Fin hacks. We were able to do all these education programs. That was what we focused on first because that's the talent I had. And then eventually we grew to hiring some analysts. And so we shifted into doing more chargeback and resource allocation. And then obviously we've hired some billing specialists and people that knew how to do reservation planning. And so I think you kind of have to look at the capabilities and figure out what talent you have now to execute on those things. There's never going to be like one way to say you should absolutely go do reservation purchases first. You should actually go to deal with shared costs first. You're going to have to, see what your resources are capable to do and at what scale is another important element.
Nice. And it's interesting that you started with education because that infers that there is actually a lot of content out there. This is, although it's a relatively new field, it's pretty easy to get started because there is a lot of content that you can leverage to learn and give to your teams as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we did a lot of we knew who our champions were too. Like if someone was really good at using Spot, we would have them do a lunch and learn on Spot. Someone was really good at implementing, serverless, then we would have them present. And so that gave individuals the opportunity to hear other engineers present, which is always nice hearing from your peers. But it was also still getting across the message that we wanted around efficiency and optimization.
Yeah, gotcha. For those at home, Ashley mentioned Spot there. That is AWS's interruptible computing resources. So you're sort of using the resources that are sort of sitting there. No one's using them. You can get them at a big discount. So that's what that is about. And actually, finally, salary. How much should organizations expect to pay? And also, is this going to be a very good field to get in terms of remuneration as, a career goal for people that are potentially getting into the industry?
Yeah, it's a good question. So also in the State of FinOps survey, we did survey people on their salary, and a lot of people disclosed that, which was nice. It's posted on the website. But what we kind of saw is if you were about 2 to 4 years worth of experience, you were coming in around $150,000. That makes it a pretty attractive field to get into. And level of education was, pretty much an undergrad. There were some, master's degrees as well. And then it really just kind of went up from there, especially if you were managing a team or directing team. There's also the ability to move into consultancy as well. And that's one thing we see a lot within this ecosystem is people moving from being an enterprise to being a consultant to being, on a tooling vendor or moving to a cloud vendor. So it's been a lot of movement so far.
That's interesting. I mean, another good data point, there's good remuneration early, career in terms of exposure, in terms of capability looks to be good as well. It's a great advertisement. You mentioned the website. Which website are we talking to be able to get the state of FinOps?
Yeah, so data.finops.org is what you'll want to go to, and there's a whole section about salary there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Alrighty, it is time for a break. We're going to do our speed round questions. This is where we ask our guests a series of questions to get to know them a little better. Ashley, are you ready for the speed round questions?
I'm ready.
Alrighty, let's go. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I've never had it, so I'm going to say no, but I would try it.
Beetroot on burgers, yes or no?
What was that?
A beetroot on burgers, yes or no?
No.
Ouch. Cat person or a dog person?
Dog.
Alrighty, red or white wine?
Go white.
Beer or spirits?
Beer.
Do you ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
I ask for permission, but I'm trying to be better about doing the other.
Your favorite movie, director, producer, genre?
Oh, I'm terrible at movies. I like sci-fi.
Do you prefer tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Your favorite TV series? And no, you can't say FinOps Fridays.
Office, still a classic, still watch it a lot.
Oh, I'm going to have to do a sub-question here. The UK or the American version?
I have seen both, but the US.
Your favorite song, musician, genre, music?
I like country, and there's a local person from my town named Haley Witters who is rising in Nashville right now, so I'll give her a shout out.
Nice. Your favorite food?
Oh, I like tacos.
The crispy ones or the soft ones?
Crispy.
When you're on holidays, do you prefer to do activities, be very active, or relax and do nothing?
Yeah, this is where my project management, I like to plan everything out and see everything.
But then you can relax because everything's planned. You don't have to worry.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm there. Do you prefer buildings or architecture and nature?
I'd be more nature.
Your preferred superpower, supernatural ability?
Slow time down.
Slow time, so you can get more things done.
Get more things done, yes.
Yeah, I can feel on that.
Yeah.
Your favorite vacation location?
I like Sedona, Arizona.
Text or talk? What's your preference?
Talk.
Your childhood nickname, if it's work safe?
Oh, I was Crashly. I was not a very good driver, so I've gotten better. So we were just in an accident last week, so I shouldn't say that. I wasn't driving.
Your proudest moment?
Being a mom twice.
Oh, nice. Congratulations. Alrighty, so we've got a score of 92. You missed a little bit on the US version of The Office in the Pantry, which is somewhat a quintessentially Australian thing, but not to.
At least I've seen them. I get like some points for that, right?
100%. Yeah. Alrighty, so let's get back into the final question for this part of the show. We've touched on this a little bit in terms of what specialties do you need in the function of FinOps? The particular roles, the outcomes that you're looking to achieve, which ones do you need when?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So as being a hiring manager for this, I always thought when I was looking for people, I was looking for 2 of 3 things. And I'll explain that why. But you need to have some cloud fundamentals. So, getting one of the, cloud provider certifications is a really great baseline to do. You need to have some business savviness, I guess. If I'm going to put you in front of a CTO, CIO, I got to know that you can create a slide deck and you can present that, right? And then I think being analytical and, being curious about data and digging into it is really important. And the reason I say 2 out of 3 is because, to be honest, to find someone that has all 3, we call it the purple unicorn. It's not just a unicorn, it's even more rare because it has to be purple, right? So I think that's kind of key. I think if you're, I think some roles that you really helpful to have is someone around program management. You really are going to be putting together a function that is very visible with executives, and so to have it very well organized, you're probably going to want to make a team page and to send out newsletters and do things like that. So that's pretty key. Data analysts, very, very important. I had 5 of them. They all worked with all the business units, and what's important about that role is that they don't just on a keyboard do the work, but they're very hyper engaged with the SRE teams. Engineering is key for you to mature, so for you to do automation and to really scale. Now, whether that's borrowed or full-time, again, that depends.
Yep. You mentioned the SRE teams. SRE?
Oh, SRE, Site Reliable Engineers, so DevOps teams, kind of depends what people call them.
Yeah, gotcha. And have you seen that mix of roles change? I'm guessing maybe there's a lighter focus on data analysis if you're very small because there's just not that much data versus, when you're millions of dollars a month, then, hey, that's going to be really a core function and it changes the focus a bit.
Yeah, I definitely think it changes on your size, your scope, and how mature you are. I was recently talking to a company that has a billing specialist, and the reason they have it is because they're so large that they talked about, if you have a bank account and someone takes $15 out of it and you have so much money in it, you might not notice it, right? And so that's why it's so important to have a billing specialist at a large scale that can catch all of those things that would typically be, not caught. And so it really depends on your cloud size, but then I would also say it depends on your maturity and what you're going to do. Target's a really good example. They're working on building basically a full-on FinOps product. And so I think they have the largest team that we've heard of so far, and it's because it is a whole bunch of engineers developing an application product.
Yeah, and you also mentioned, that inquisitive nature to be able to identify a problem and understand why and how to solve it. Does that rule out people that want to just follow a process day in, day out, come in? Could they be part of FinOps, or is that a type of person that maybe isn't the best for FinOps? Who
No,
would you rule
they
out?
could absolutely be, and I think that's where we start to see FinOps having more roles within it, hierarchy within it, right? That was always an important role to have people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and do the tactical work, like follow up
Yeah,
on that anomaly detection, right? It's not the most glamorous thing to do. Submit the email to have the forecasting filled out. There's definitely elements that are a little repetitive, a little tactical. I call them business as usual, that have to be done, whether that's a single person doing it or that's embedded into other people's roles. But we do see more hierarchy coming.
yeah, wow. So it's great salary, accessible to all people, early starters, good exposure in the business, and everyone can play a part. FinOps seems to be the place to be, I dare say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in it for the long haul, so.
Nice. Alrighty, so we're going to take a break there. So that's the end of the first part of the series talking about talent with Ashley. If you do have any feedback or you've got any questions, we of course have the mailbag in the episodes as well. You can reach out to us at FinOps Fridays at Apptio.com. So stay tuned for the next episode.